What is going on, YouTube? Andrew Miller from Hook'emHeadlines.com coming back at y'all today. And got another commitment breakdown. Been a busy week for that. I think some of this was to be expected, but at the same time, Texas has hit a pretty big wave of momentum on the recruiting trail right now in the 2024 class. On both sides of the ball, picked up some skill commits. But the latest commitment is four-star running back out of Arizona. Another guy out of Arizona, Phoenix Mountain Pointe running back Christian Clark. This is a recruitment that Texas was leading for a while. I think it was probably since the spring that I really felt good about Texas's standing here. They landed his commitment over offers from Oregon, Florida State, Georgia, were some of the top schools involved here. He had an official visit to Georgia for this coming weekend, but obviously that will no longer be happening. Official visits to the likes of Florida State and Oregon, didn't make a huge impression, didn't make a huge dent in Texas's lead. I think Oregon was a threat here. Had a planned official visit to see USC last month, but I don't think that official visit ever came to fruition. All in all, Texas kind of held the lead here for a while. Tashard Choice had the best relationship of any of the coaches recruiting Clark, really for the last 6 months, if not longer. And Texas wound up sealing the deal with him. This was a recruitment that I had on commitment watch for the last couple of weeks, if not longer. And so, Clark is the first running back to commit to Texas's 2024 class. He's one of the top guys that Tashard Choice and the Longhorns have been after now. The other one being the number one rated running back recruit in the nation in the 2024 class from a lot of the major recruiting services. IMG Academy product, Jerrick Gibson. He's on campus this coming weekend for an official visit. So Texas could round out this running back class here pretty soon with two really, really solid guys. One elite guy, and I think one highly touted blue chip in Clark. But yeah, if you haven't seen any of my recruiting breakdowns before, kind of a standard format where I go through breaking down each recruit's game, what they bring to the table, strengths, areas of improvement, things like that, and then how they project at Texas. Also did a pretty lengthy article over at the site today. I'll link that in the description below if you're looking for something with a little bit more analysis. I'll be kind of summing up some of what I wrote on there, but again, if you want to dig a little bit deeper, definitely check that out as well. But yeah, let's go ahead and jump in. So, at a high level, Clark is a very versatile running back. I don't think enough people kind of gave him credit for how much he can do. Maybe not an elite level, but at least at a good to high level. He's a good blocker. I don't mean that to be the first thing that I highlight just in the sense of what impact he'll have at Texas, but it's rare that you get someone that is so new to regular varsity reps at the high school level. Last fall was really the first time that he was a starter, or at least getting starter level reps at Desert Mountain High School and Mountain Pointe. Desert Mountain is Santana Wilson. At Mountain Pointe, and even last year, just over 1,100 total yards, but he looked good as a blocker. He was about 5'11", 195, 200 pounds, somewhere in that region, and he's already looking like a college level blocker. Good hand placement, finishes blocks really well, good in run blocking and pass blocking, understands the schemes, and so well ahead of his years in that sense. But in terms of his ability as a running back, good speed, good balance, good agility. Field vision is a plus. I think that's kind of still a work in progress. I'll kind of dig into that a little bit more later. But overall, his versatility his scheme versatility is really, really good because he can thrive in gap schemes where, you need to be able to kind of let the play develop and then find the hole as your blockers start to get downfield. He's got that type of elusiveness and that type of patience to let the play develop. At the same time, Texas relies heavily on zone blocking schemes, especially the outside zone, to set the tone on the ground. He has good bursts to the outside. He's got a good jump cut. He's got above average straight line speed as well, so if he's able to get to the outside, he can pick up a lot of yards on explosive plays. But, with an offense that has so many different concepts that are involved throughout the game, and, with one that is so integral in setting the tone with the outside zone run game, a guy like Clark, where you can mix him into different packages and schemes, is a really, really big positive to have in the offense. And so, again, just from the versatility perspective, this is huge for Texas. And then as a receiver out of the backfield, he's a guy that registered just over 700 rushing yards at Mountain Pointe High School last year. Still averaged, I think it was north of 7 yards per carry, so it's not like he was just slacking on getting like 200 carries and just, averaging like 3.5 yards per carry. But, he was involved in the receiving game probably half as much as he was involved in the ground game, a little bit less. He was like 37 receptions to like 101 carries. That's a big deal, though. He's someone that you can not only motion out, I don't think he's necessarily motioned out of the backfield as much as he's used to get out in the flats or out in the screen game. He's a really good yards after the catch type back once he gets the ball in his hands as a receiver. And so that a lot of those skills that I mentioned earlier with him as a rusher, the field vision, the patience, some of the agility and elusiveness are really, really valuable to get some of those maybe 7-8 yard gains after the catch when he's out in the flats. He's a good route runner. He's got good body control. Again, he's got good understanding at least a basic level of offensive schemes and different zones. And so, as a receiver, he can still be a potent threat. And I think for Texas, that's going to work really, really well in those two-back sets. Again, I said that I'll mention projection at Texas a little bit later, but I think that's one of the big reasons why Sark and Deshard Choice were so intent on getting this guy in the class, is because there's so many different ways that they can use him. Again, he's got so many positives as a rusher, a blocker, and a receiver, kind of the total package in that sense. More specifically, I mentioned some of his intangibles as a running back. I would be remiss if I didn't dig a little bit deeper into those. For one, again, agility, elusiveness. The ways that he's able to work through tight areas, I think, is undersold a little bit when you look at some of the high level scouting reports on his game. He's someone that changes directions really well. Short area quickness is something I mentioned with a lot of these breakdowns, because your ability to work through those tight spaces, especially in Sark's offense, is huge to be able to, maybe convert a 2nd and 5 or, a 3rd and 4 and keep the ball moving down the field, where you're able to, it really opens up the entire offensive playbook. I guess what I'm trying to say with this whole thing is that the way that Clark's able to make opposing defenses have to worry about his versatility is unmatched by most other, mid to low 4-star recruits that you're going to find kind of within the realm of his ranking in this class. And so in all those senses, he's a really good fit here. But yeah, short area quickness. I mean, for the inside zone run game, that's going to make a huge difference. Again, that's a lot of times the difference between maybe picking up 2 or 3 yards and getting brought down after that to, being able to maybe dodge a tackle or two and, have a successful play on 1st or 2nd down, where you're able to set yourself up with maybe a 2nd and short, 3rd and short, really put your offense in a spot where they have a lot more options, a lot more ways you can move the chains. Also, strong lower base. I mean, I mentioned this guy's pretty big already. You don't find that many running backs that have above average speed and this type of elusiveness and agility that are standing at around 200 pounds that are short of 6 foot. Clark's already pretty physically developed. I don't think there's a whole lot of weight that he's going to have to add after he arrives at Texas next year. And so, that allows him to fight through some of those poor tackles or, maybe out of place defensive linemen in the trenches. Again, just another way that he can get loose in the gap and inside zone running games. But strength and power, downhill running ability shouldn't be undersold with his game either. I think it's really easy to get attracted to the elusiveness and the agility, some of the big plays that he broke off at Mountain Pointe last year, but I think that the strength and the strong lower base are something that's going to, are two things that are going to be able to help him stand out, within his first 2 or 3 years on campus. Those are most of the strengths that I wanted to mention for him, though. Like I said, his profile is not that of, a mid tier 4-star. When you're looking at a running back that's usually this polished, he's a high 4-star. So in this case, Clark is a very, very unique running back. I want to dig into some of the areas of improvement. I've really only got 2 for him. The first one being, I mentioned it earlier, kind of hinted at it, is the field. I would say not necessarily the field vision, but the patience to let plays develop. I've noticed at times watching him in the outside zone run game that he can be a little slow. Like at times it seems like he's almost running like it's like more of a wide spanning gap scheme where he's trying to hit holes to the outside, where in an outside zone run scheme, you just have to find the hole and just explode through it. I think finding that confidence, that first step, is something that just kind of comes along over time with feel for the game. Again, I mentioned that he didn't really get any sort of starter level reps until last year in high school. And so, I would expect to see him make some pretty big strides this year in that regard, as well as in his first year at Texas. So I'm not like super worried about that part, but I think it's still something to watch. The other thing that I noticed watching his film and just reading through some other scouting reports, covering him over the last 6 or 8 months as I have, is his ability as a receiver, I will say, is a plus, but he does still catch the ball with his body sometimes when, especially if he's one-on-one with a linebacker or safety, you'd like to see him catch the ball with his hands, bring it in, then focus on picking up yards after the catch after that, not necessarily worrying about running before you catch the ball. So I think this is a minor tweak, but being able to make this change will be very, I mentioned that I think it'll be very transformative in the article I did today, where, Clark has good hands. You can tell that when you watch his film. You don't get 37 catches as, he was splitting time. I believe the guy's name was Jalen Rushing, the running back that he was splitting time with at Mountain Pointe last year. And so you don't come up with 37 catches if you have bad hands, if you have bricks for hands. That's just not going to happen. And so for him, I think it's just kind of making that small tweak as just a fundamental receiver out of the backfield to be able to make catches the right way. And, then you can focus on picking up those valuable yards after the catch, after you've secured the ball. And so that's one area that I would like to see him progress a little bit, but something, again, a little bit more specific. I think even for a guy like Bijan Robinson, his feel for the game as a receiver out of the backfield took some years to get to where it was last season at Texas. And so I think it'll be a similar trajectory for Clark, just to figure that part of his game out. But last but not least, I wanted to get into his fit at Texas, kind of break down where I think he projects over the next few years. I've mentioned it here and there. I do think that he's just too versatile to keep off the field for too long. As a true freshman, I don't know how much he's going to see the field next year because Texas is going to have a running back room that is just so deep and talented. It's going to be hard to get some of those valuable live game reps. Texas is going to have guys back. Let's say that they do reel in Jerrick Gibson as they're expected to in the 2024 class. That's 2 consecutive number 1 ranked running back recruits in the nation. Because then you're going to have CJ Baxter as a sophomore, Gibson as a true freshman. Assuming you're getting back Jonathan Brooks, potentially like Trey Wisner, Jaden Blue, Savion Red. This is going to be a stacked running back room next year. And so that's going to go 6 deep. And so, I think he's more of like a second-year guy where, fixing maybe some of these, or maybe making some of these small tweaks and really proving himself in multiple regards that, he can handle all these different roles in Sark's offense. While it's easy to say that this versatility he's showing in high school, it's still a big jump to digest all the different concepts that come along with this complicated offensive scheme under Sark. And so I think giving this a year to settle in college can really be to Clark's benefit, and then you can really see this versatility shine in his sophomore, junior seasons. I think the special thing about the potential of having Jerrick Gibson and Christian Clark in this class is that their skill sets really complement each other, where you can have 2 back sets with them in the same backfield. In a way, kind of like Bijan and Roshan were, where, Roshan was that kind of do-it-all guy that, was big frame and just run over guys, still was underrated for his ability to pick up yards in the open field, really do damage in space. Obviously, Bijan, I would say, best running back in the country last year. He was the guy that, any given down you could get it to, and it just wasn't going to be a negative play. It was always going to be a successful run when you got the ball in his hands. And I think it could be a similar dynamic, whether it's C.J. Baxter, Jerrick Gibson, or Christian Clark, either Jerrick Gibson or C.J. Baxter in the backfield opposite Christian Clark in a two-back set. Because, again, Clark can block, he can be a receiver, or you could give him the ball and zone or gap schemes. And, again, he can still come up with successful plays. So, ultimately, I think he's going to be a quality contributor for multiple years at Texas. I think his value is going to greatly outweigh his recruiting ranking. He's the type of guy, I don't like to use these sort of like NBA or NFL draft type terminology for projections in recruiting, but he really is a high floor sort of player because he's so quickly, like he's displayed this level of versatility and physical maturity in high school that's well ahead of his years, and that's special. So anyway, that's pretty much all I got for this breakdown for Clark. I've covered this recruitment here almost a year now, and so I've definitely familiarized myself with his game, but I definitely dove into some more specific areas with the breakdown today. But anyway, for Andrew Miller at Hook'em Headlines, that's pretty much it. Welcome.